Welcome to the Career Curious podcast. I'm your host, George Roots. I am joined today by Aurelius Macklin. Aurelius, would you mind introducing yourself?
My name is Aurelius Macklin. I was born and raised in Gary, Indiana, with high hopes of doing something outside of the norm from our little pocket of Indiana. I'm 42 years old, and I've been working in my career for about 22 years. Architectural engineer. I've worked with an architectural firm for about 15 years, and I'm currently working with the company that I currently work for right now. We produce the exterior skins on buildings. So the name of the company is Engineered Facades. We engineer the facades on buildings, and we make those gigantic buildings that you would see downtown. We take those buildings and we wrap them in precious steel and ceramics to make them look nice. We're normally the last people on the job, but we make the job look pretty. So that's what I do now.
Is it fun? Do you enjoy it?
Oh yeah, I absolutely enjoy it. The primary program that we use is AutoCAD, and it's still a leading factor in this industry. And the control I have over the items that I produce, even though we normally have to stick with the guidelines put before us by general contractors and architects. We generally have to stay within those parameters, but outside of that, I have the ability to create something or manifest something that needs to be engineered.
How'd you get started? How'd you enter into architectural engineering?
That's a good question. When I was young, I always had an artistic side to me. And some of the people that I looked up to would say, "Oh, you like art, and you like math, and you're going to be an architect one day." And the right people kept saying those words to me. I was young, I was a kid, I didn't know no better. I was like, sure, architect. Yeah, that's what we'll go for. So I looked into it. I went to Vincennes University for architecture. They had a nice architecture curriculum down there. I enjoyed it enough to get my degree, and I got hired after completing college almost out of the gate at a small firm in Anderson, Indiana, where I proceeded to work for the next 15 years. Surprisingly enough, the field of architecture has very little to do with creativity or art because everyone has to be in a particular box. The only way to really stray from the box of the general idea of the person you're working for, be it a family man building a home or a contractor that wants a building constructed, there are certain guidelines and quotas that you have to meet in order to bring that structure to life. You don't really get into the artistic side of architecture until you get super big in the industry. You have to be famous enough for people to just give you money to do whatever you want. So we have some leeway as the architectural engineer that I am. I can solve a problem in a creative way to make it cost effective and pleasant. That is the takeaway I have now when it comes to designing things. When I was younger, I had a completely different outlook on what an architect does and how an architect works. Reality is it's far less creative than I would have wanted it to be starting out, and I won't be able to influence anyone with my creativity as far as building a house or designing a building until I get much more renowned in my field.
That's a great answer. I think you set me up to ask some following questions. What characteristics do you think would be useful to become an architect if someone were interested?
I do think that patience, you need to be able to adapt. And a lot of times when dealing with customers who have a particular vision of how they want something to look or how they want something to flow, you have to take someone's vision, someone's idea, someone's dream, and you have to make it a reality. And it's often hard to do that, especially when someone constantly goes back and forth on how they want something to really look. So you have to be patient with them, and you have to be willing to roll with the punches. Like, you can't do that because that doesn't work, but we can do this. This is a good substitution. And I'd also have to say, being in this field, you need to not take things personally, because me being artistic, when I present something to someone and I think it's a great idea and this is top notch, if my ideas are shot down or like, we don't want to go with that, we're going to go with this, I had to learn to not take it personally, because when I create art, I'm bearing something personal, and for it to be not accepted, it's hard to take that personally. You might want to keep that in mind when you're coming through the door, because if you take offense to someone not accepting your ideas, you're easily discouraged and you'll back off from it. So that would be my recommendation.
That is amazing. That overlaps quite a bit with software engineering as well, and software design, where you build websites and use different colors. In fact, that was part of one of the reasons that I didn't go into a more artistic field myself, because the scrutiny is sometimes subjective. Yeah, so I can see that. What does your day to day look like? Well, to start your week, like what does a Monday look like?
Okay. Being an architectural engineer is what I'm doing right now. And the projects I work on often take me 3 to 4 weeks, maybe 6 months to complete, depending on the size. On a day-to-day basis, it's almost like eating an elephant. You have to take it one spoonful at a time. You have to be very focused on the end goal, but you have to hit certain key points along the way so that you stay on track with getting to your destination. What helps for me is I set mini goals along the way to make sure that I can complete my task in a timely manner, because otherwise you can get sidetracked with doing other things that eventually work to get to your goal, but you can streamline things easier. So, for instance, at this company, every Monday morning, the engineers and we all get together and we discuss what we're working on for the week and what we plan to have done by next week. And we keep going on with that until the project we're working on is complete. So when it comes to a Tuesday, I generally have my own schedule to work with. I stare at a computer 8 hours a day, and I'm in here problem solving and identifying problems before they become problems, and I'm finding solutions before it becomes an issue in the field. That's one of the characteristics of my current position is we solve problems before they're problems. We get the drawings from the architect. We solve his problems sometimes. We do all of this stuff in the forefront so that when we give our finished drawings to our project managers, who have to then go out there and put the stuff on the wall and work with the real life conditions, they have fewer problems so they can do what they need to do to complete the work. So in a nutshell, that just keeps going round and round, project to project, and until I guess it doesn't end. Construction is always going to be ongoing, so it's a good field to be in because it rarely sees
Wonderful. How hard is it to get into architecture now? If someone is watching this and they're motivated, is the industry accepting it? Are there jobs out there? And the next one is kind of hinting what you're saying, which is like, I'm curious, what is something that you've done that you're proud of recently, because you've done all these different works?
Okay, I'll answer them in order. As far as breaking into the industry, Ball State has a renowned architectural program, and it is very hard to get into. There was a waiting list. You had to be on campus and go through X amount of hours towards your major. Then you have to transfer. It was a small group to get into, but they're not the end all to architectural programs. There are other architectural programs you can do. You can go at it online. You can go to a smaller place, as long as you get the degree in your hand and you can use that degree to get real life experience. That experience is what's going to take you to the next level and open doors for you to get other places, because there are many companies that use engineer and architects in different ways. If you know the AutoCAD program, you can get hired. One of the guys we hired here knew AutoCAD, but he wasn't familiar with architecture. We took him straight from making Nissan parts. that same program can be used in different ways. And it's a skill worth having. Some of the people that I work with now also came from architectural firms like I did, and some came from straight engineering backgrounds. But it's a trait that you can use in other fields other than architecture or engineer. Like you can be a civil architect where you work on street designs and property layouts. It does have some malleability. It can be a versatile a bit of knowledge to go into that field, especially if you enjoy stuff of that nature. Now, your second question, something that I've done recently that I'm proud of. I personally have worked on a 12-story hospital on the north side of Indianapolis, Vincent Children's and Women's Hospital. It was a huge feat to work on. I got a chance to meet the architect of the building as they were constructing it, and he commended me on my efforts to bring his vision to life here in Indiana. He's actually from New York, a small Japanese man, but he's really cool, really awesome to work with. I've, worked with him hand to hand on identifying problems and coming up with solutions. And I personally engineered a type of block that we use in our company to streamline the configuration of that project. It allowed us to do things that would normally take another company 6 months to do. I could do it in a few weeks. That was pretty cool. I worked hand in hand with my boss and the architect of that job to make sure to hit deadlines. We had thousands of ceramic panels that wrap this building, and it's almost complete now, and it looks amazing. We did such a good job on that project that they gave us the next building and they gave us the garage, and they kept giving us work. They were like, we want these people on this job. It was a big feather in my cap and a huge pat on my back. It made me look good in my company's eyes and in the eyes of the other people that work, because it's a big hospital, a lot of trades, a lot of people have their hands in it. It's going to be a nice piece of the skyline on the north side of Indianapolis. It's something that I can point to later on in my old age and say, yeah, I helped do that.
That is so
So
amazing.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's so amazing. I might need that address, or I'll just look at the skyline. That's
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I guess what's next for a architectural engineer? Like, you've hit this point where you've been in this profession 15, almost 2 decades. Will you continue doing the same things? Do you go up to do something different? I guess what will be the future, not just for you, but for someone in your like.
Okay, so I can speak on. Right now, I'm working with a team of engineers to, do whatever projects that the engineering or the drafting team has available. There are steps to get to, there are plateaus to get to the next level. The next level would be for me to have some sort of a director role over the engineering team, where the engineering people would come to me for, recommendations, advice, help problem solving. They would come to me in order to help work out like details and information on what types of panels, screws, and things that they would need to use to complete the work that they're working on. Now, above that is a person above the entire department who not only deals with the engineers, but deals with the project managers and the sales team. This person is the go-between that takes the information from the project managers and helps the sales team figure out the budget, how much this project would cost, how much labor should be assigned, and how long it would take the engineering department to complete this job. And then that guy also takes the drawings that we have and he checks them, make sure they're good. Then he gives them to the project managers and he answers any questions that the project managers might have. So that would be kind of the tier in this company. Once you get to that level of expertise, you can take that knowledge that you have and make a lateral move to having your own engineering company with your own staff and your own engineering team. There are just strictly engineering companies that you hire them to do the work that we're doing, but we're in-house. Our company has its own engineering department and its own labor and project managers. Prior to me coming on, they also contracted engineers and architects to do the drawings and work, but it was more efficient to have it in-house. Aside from that, you could make a lateral move and just be an engineering firm where people contact you for engineering purposes. They give you a set of drawings or give you ideas, and you take it upon yourself or your team to draw up those ideas with your knowledge and skill level.
Gotcha.
So that's essentially how you go from being where I am and have aspirations of climbing that ladder.
Wonderful. Thank you. I think I have only two more questions. If you could go back in time and give 15 years ago, what advice would you give yourself getting into this line of work?
I'd have to say to myself, to be less judgmental and don't second guess yourself. Really go for it. I feel like if I had aspirations to do more, I would probably be further than I am right now. And a lot of that was self-doubt. If I had started earlier in my career, venturing out, seeing what else was available to me and what other positions could help me go to the next level, I think I would be a little bit further along than where I am right now. So I'd have to say my advice to my younger self is to be more hungry at accomplishing goals, more ambitious. That would be my advice.
That is great advice. Hopefully, if someone's thinking about being in this career, they will listen and use your advice. I think that's wonderful. Are there any careers, like if you weren't doing what you were doing now, are there any careers that you're curious about?
Honestly, I would have really liked to have been, what do you call it? Like not a graphic designer. I would have liked to have been a decorative designer. I think I have a knack for what's trendy, what looks good, and designing spaces and homes. It calls to me. Interior design is the field I probably would have gone after if I didn't end up being an architect.
So I asked the question because as a part of the podcast, we want to find different careers that people are curious about. So can I find a interior designer or a decorative designer, whatever that is, so then I can bring them onto the podcast. They can tell us what they do, and so you can answer some of your curiosities. And maybe I'll ask the question
Right.
like how well are you doing? Is it a good field? Should people join it? Right? That's the point of the podcast. Thank you for taking the time to talk to me and sharing with us what
Yeah,
it's like
no,
being an
anytime, absolutely.
architecture engineer. I'm done with my questions. Do you have any questions for me?
I'm honored to have the opportunity to speak my piece and say what's on my mind and get it on record.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. And hopefully we can have you on again to go into more details about what your day-to-day may look like. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Aurelius Macklin. All right,
All
we good.
right. Thank you, George Roots.